Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining us for another story here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. My parents, who treated me like crap my whole life, expect me to plan a destination vow renewal for their 40th anniversary. When I ask them why my golden child sister can't help, they say she has, quote unquote, too much on her plate. So I did this to make sure they never take me for granted again. I, 36 female, I'm happily married to the love of my life, Dylan, 38 male. We've been together for over a decade now, married for 7 years, and we have 3 children together. Right now, I am at a very happy place in my life. I didn't have the best time growing up, so I made it a point to make sure that I'm going to make the most of what's left of my life. We don't have anything quote-unquote fancy, but I am grateful that we have a modest house and car. Our kids get a good education, and we have food on the table. I work part-time to earn some extra money on the side and plan time work full-time when the kids are older. Things were going pretty well until my parents came to me with a proposition that has now completely consumed my life. Let me provide some context. While growing up, I was always the black sheep of the family. I grew up in a rather working-class family. My dad had worked while my mother was a homemaker. I have a younger sister, Leah, 33 female, and we all lived together with our grandparents. It was very clear from a young age that Leah was my parents' favorite child. I don't really know the exact reason why. Maybe she was a cuter baby, but she always got special treatment. I was the oldest child, and usually the younger child gets the older siblings' hand-me-downs, but never Leah. I don't know if I should find this funny or sad, but my parents used to buy Leah new clothes and toys and then used to give me stuff that she didn't like. This took a toll on me emotionally. My parents' constant favoritism towards my sister made me feel like an outcast, and I didn't know what to do, especially when we were in our teen years. I would constantly do things to get their attention, but never got any. At that time, I guess it was normal for a parent to have a preference towards one child, but after becoming a mother myself, I cannot fathom how they managed to disregard me so much while putting my sister on a pedestal. I could never dream of doing that to my own kids. I definitely was jealous of Leah. I mean, who wouldn't be? It's not like she did anything to make my life easier. She had my parent wrapped around her finger, and she knew it. She knew how much they favored and made sure to take full advantage of it. Years of my parents' coddling had made her a spoiled brat. Every time she did something stupid or got into trouble, she would somehow manage to blame the whole thing on me. The worst part was that my parents believed everything she said. She was a sneak who would go around telling everyone about my secrets and about the embarrassing things that I told her in private. She made it a point to bully me and make me do her work, and it was always me who was blamed if anything bad happened. Me who was punished for things that I didn't even do. Me who had to face my parents' anger and get yelled at for almost everything. It was as if Leah could never do anything wrong in my parents' eyes. She was their golden child, and honestly, they treated her as if she were an only child, as if I didn't exist at all. I studied very hard, volunteered, did extracurricular activities, and even tutored other kids, but my parents were never proud of anything I did. While I excelled in school, Leah was not the smartest tool in the shed, but what she was good at was gymnastics. Now, she was not a prodigy or anything like that, but she had won a few medals at school events, and that was my parents' greatest pride and joy. Not the tons of medals that I had won for other stuff, just Leah's medals. They were so delusional over her that they thought that one day she would make the nationals and become an Olympic-level gymnast. We have a large extended family, with many aunts and uncles and tons of cousins. Every time we had family gatherings, my parents would proudly go around speaking highly of Leah, while completely disregarding me, so much that the rest of the family actually thought that I was a dead weight. I was school valedictorian in high school, and I was supposed to give a speech at graduation. I was so proud of myself because I worked so hard and was sure that my parents would be happy, but guess what? They didn't even attend my graduation because they had to take Leah to a championship. It wasn't even anything important, just some inter-school event, which she lost, but yeah, they missed my graduation for that. I won't lie, that stung. I went off to college after graduating, and I truly began living life. Without the constant comparisons to my sister and living in a new city, it was a new, fresh start for me. I made new friends. We even got an apartment together, started dating, went on trips, and did internships. Life was great, and I was thriving without all the added pressure. I did keep in contact with my parents. I even tried to visit a few times a year. It didn't seem like they missed me much, because every time I went back home, I was back to being invisible. But going to college gave me this newfound confidence and perspective in life. I knew that even though I wasn't really wanted at home, I had people who actually loved me and valued me back at college. In my final year, I got a phone call from my mother. I was in the middle of class, so I let it go to voicemail. But she kept calling me until I had to excuse myself to answer it. She told me that Leah was pregnant. I was shocked. Leah was very young, and she was in no way capable of raising a kid. I thought my mother had called me so that we could figure out what to do next. But instead, she started blaming me. She said that I was the reason Leah was pregnant, which made absolutely no sense at all. Apparently, I was supposed to guide my sister and show her what was right and wrong. But instead of being there for her, I ran away to college because I was selfish, and now she had no guidance and made wrong decisions because of me. My mother seriously blamed me for my sister's pregnancy. Yes, you read that right. I visited home the following week just to be greeted with taunts from my mother about being a bad sister. Of course, they never said a word to Leah. She was still their perfect little princess who could do no wrong. I don't know how my parents had convinced themselves that I was responsible for any of this, but it seemed like a coping mechanism to come to terms with the fact that their innocent goody-two-shoes daughter was not that innocent anymore. It just seemed easier to blame me because that's what they've been doing for ages. I come from a very conservative and religious family, and having a child so young and out of wedlock was a huge taboo. My parents didn't want to tarnish the perfect image that they had created for Leah, so they pulled her from school and hid her whole pregnancy from the family. When my nephew was born, my parents introduced him as their son, not grandson. They managed to convince the entire family that this was a surprise pregnancy so that Leah could be protected. I began to move on with my life. After college, I moved back to my hometown and got a job. I moved out of my parents' house because I wanted some independence. Leah continued living with them. Unbeknownst to them, I knew that Leah was out most of the time hanging out with the wrong sort of people, drinking, smoking, and generally making wrong decisions. I knew that she had a ton of boyfriends and tried talking some sense into her, because now she had a baby and had to be more responsible. Leah would always shut me down and tell me to mind my own business. My parents still didn't believe me and continued to let Leah fool them. I met my wonderful husband a few years after moving out. He was everything I wanted in a partner, and soon we were dating. My parents were never fond of him and constantly disapproved of our relationship. However, we loved each other, and that's what mattered the most. When he proposed to me, I said yes, and we began planning for the wedding. Now, I didn't expect my parents to pay for the wedding. We were earning pretty well. However, I would have appreciated even a little support from them. They didn't pay a single dime. They didn't even offer. I was okay with it, but somewhere deep down it hurt. Not even a month after our wedding, Leah announced that she was getting engaged and was planning her own wedding. We didn't even have a clue who the guy was. She introduced us to him, and I recognized that he was one of the many on and off flags that she had. I knew that she was only doing this because she couldn't bear the fact that the attention was on me. My parents made sure that she had the wedding of her dreams. They paid for everything: the venue, the food, the dress, the decor, everything. They spent most of their savings on the wedding. These were the same parents who didn't even give me a wedding gift, let alone pay for anything. It was after this that I realized that my parents were never going to love me as much as Leah. I decided to leave the past behind and focus on my own family, and that's exactly what I did. Over the past few years, I focused on my marriage and work. Soon we were blessed with 3 beautiful babies, and we were happy in our own little bubble. I can't say the same for Leah. In the past 8 years, her life had completely changed. She got divorced not even 2 years into her marriage. She was pregnant at the time. She got into a bunch of toxic relationships after that. one after another, which did her more harm than good. She had another daughter whose father we still don't know of. Over the past year, she moved back in with my parents because she couldn't handle being a single mom. She hadn't held a job in her life and expected my parents to give her money and look after her kids. I don't know why they keep making excuses for her and putting up with her. They still keep up this facade that she's perfect when she's sucking them dry. Last year, I came to know that she was lying to my parents by telling them that she was coaching children in gymnastics when she would spend the day at the mall or bars with her friends, and my parents never suspected her, nor did they ask her for money. I was honestly disgusted. I tried to knock some sense into her, but to no avail. I told my parents multiple times that she was using them as babysitters and for money, but as usual, they were on her side. About 3 weeks ago, my mother casually came up to me and told me that I needed to start planning for the 48th wedding. This was the first time that I had heard of this, and I just assumed that she wanted me to throw a small party with a few close friends and family. But then she told me that since it was such a milestone, she wanted it to be super memorable and have a destination vow renewal ceremony. She told me that she had a very small wedding because when my parents got married, they were very poor, and she wanted to have the wedding of her dreams now. I thought she was joking, but she was very serious about it. She gave me a list of everything she wanted, and I was shocked. She wanted me to book a venue in the Bahamas, pay for her flight tickets, for her and for around 50 friends and family members, pay for their stay in a very fancy resort, buy her a dress, a new ring, tuxedo for my dad, pay for all the food and decorations. I thought that this was a prank. Her anniversary was in 10 days, and there was no way I would have been able to pull off such an expensive ceremony, even if I had 10 months to prepare for it. Like I said, we aren't rich. I don't have the kind of money that I can just throw around on a random cow renewal. I told my mother that it was literally impossible for me to be able to do this, mainly because she had caught me off guard, the time constraint, and the fact that I had no money. My mother started crying and saying that after everything she did for me, this was the least that I could do to make her happy. She sacrificed everything to give me a good life, and I haven't repaid my debts. She guilt-tripped me and made me feel awful. I felt that it was extremely unfair of her to ask me for so much in such a short time. This was thousands of dollars that I didn't have. I asked her why she wasn't asking her golden child, Leah, to plan this. I said that it would only be fair if she contributed to at least a quarter of the expenses. My mother said that Leah had a lot on her plate, but being a teacher and a single mother to 3, there was no need to add pressure on her because she was already doing more than she could. I could not believe how delusional my mother was. I finally managed to convince my parents to settle for a smaller party. I said that I could never afford plane tickets and stay for so many guests. I found a beautiful resort in my hometown. It had a beautiful lake, and my mother liked the place. I went out of my way to get the venue for a reasonable price. I had 3 young kids and a part-time job, but I still made sure to meet with the caterers, get her and my dad new outfits, arrange for the flowers, sent out invites, and made all the arrangements myself. I requested Leah to do some of the things, but she was too busy at her fake gymnastic class. Neither did she help nor pay for a single thing. I kept quiet because I just wanted to be done with this. 2 days before the ceremony, my parents saw Leah while she was supposed to be working at the mall. Leah knew that she had been caught, so she made up a lie, saying that she had been fired that day and she came to the mall to make herself better, and they bought it. Leah acted as if she was heartbroken that she got fired from her imaginary job and kept making comments about how the kids had no one to guide them. Pathetic. On the day of the vow renewal, I was managing the whole show by myself. I made sure that everything went off as smoothly as possible, and I was pulling it off. It was a success. After the ceremony, we all went inside for dinner, and it was time for speeches. A few family members shared some memories of our parents. A few minutes before it was my mom's turn to give the speech, she came to me and told me that she was very grateful that I gave her this beautiful day. It was not her dream ceremony, but she was very happy and appreciated me for it. This was the first time she ever acknowledged my hard work. Then she told me that Leah was not her usual bubbly self since she got fired, and she needed to cheer up and make her feel appreciated as well. She had the audacity to ask me if I could let her give Leah the credit for planning and paying for everything. This time, I did a double take. I said absolutely not. Leah had no part in this. The only thing she did was show up. My mom said that Leah was going through a tough time and that she really needed to pick me up. And before I could do anything, she stood up and started her speech, thanking everyone for coming and going on about how Leah spilled her blood, sweat, and tears to plan this beautiful day for her and give her this dream ceremony. Leah shamelessly listened to my mom with fake tears in her eyes, taking all the credit and appreciation for everything I did. She acted all coy and shy when our relatives clapped for her. I was furious and I couldn't take it any longer. Finally, it was my turn to speak. I stood up, took the mic, and started. I too first thanked everyone for showing up and making this day so memorable, but I was going to make sure that this was a day that they never forgot. I joked about how this was the first time my parents were actually hearing my speech because they failed to hear my valedictorian speech at graduation because they felt that Leah's somersault competition was more important. There were a few uncomfortable laughs around the room, but this statement set the mood for the rest of the speech. And trust me, I did not hold back. I started speaking about how my parents always thought Leah was going to be a star, how they always supported her and put her on a pedestal, leaving me in the dust, how I did and still continue to do everything for them to get their attention, but even now, I wasn't enough. I spoke about how unfairly I was treated and how that affected my mental health while growing up. Everyone was silent. My dad tried taking the mic away, but I kept speaking about all the times I was wrongly blamed, yelled at, and embarrassed because of my sister. Then I turned my attention to the star of the evening, Leah. I told everyone that, unlike everything my mom said praising her, Leah didn't do anything, not even lift a finger to help me plan this whole event, nor did she help out financially. My mother was so blinded by her love for her that she was willing to disregard all my hard work just to help her feel better. What about my feelings and all the effort and money I put into this? She didn't care in the least. Everyone was gasping at this point, and Leah tried to hit me and call me a liar. I honestly didn't care. I told everyone about how she was a useless daughter and a useless mother. She was in her 30s, hadn't worked a day in her life, and was taking advantage of our parents to look after her kids. I told them that she never had a job and she was lying about the whole gymnastic teacher thing, just so that she didn't have to take any responsibility for her kids. This time I spoke directly to her. I told her that she was a spoiled brat and deserved no pity, and if my parents were not willing to give her a reality check, I was. I told her that it was finally time for her to stop being lazy and relying on the fact that my parents were going to save her. My mother tried cutting out the mic, but not before I told everyone that my so-called brother was actually my nephew, whom Leah had out of wedlock. With that, I picked up my stuff and left with my husband. The whole place was in shambles. My mother and Leah were wailing, but I didn't care. The years of oppression that I had buried deep down finally exploded, and it felt good. Maybe I could have handled this in a better way, more privately, but since last night, it feels like a huge load has been taken off me. Should I have done this privately? Wow, I posted this a few days ago, and a lot has gone down. Also, the response to this post has been overwhelming. I spent the whole morning reading through your comments and empathizing with all of you who have had similar experiences. I'm sorry that so many of you guys, like me, have been unfairly treated by our parents for no fault of ours. I just hope that we can all learn and grow from those experiences and be better parents than our parents ever were, so that our kids would never have to face these types of situations. I have also been getting tons of hate for what I did at the ceremony. I understand where you're coming from. I might come across as heartless and cruel, but you have no idea what I've been experiencing all my life. Constantly sidelined and never appreciated. My mother gave my sister credit for all the work I did just so that she could look good in front of my family. And that was the last straw, and I just snapped. It hurt me so much that my mother was willing to go to such an extent to protect Leah. She literally lied to her own grandson that she was his mother. It's disgusting. She knew how much I struggled to make sure everything was perfect for her. She knew that I was balancing work and kids all by myself and still managed to do everything while Leah did nothing. She knew that I was spending tens of thousands of dollars on her, but she didn't care for me. Nothing I did would ever be enough for her to say that she was proud of me. The spotlight had to always be on Leah, even though she was the worst person I knew. So yeah, I snapped, and I don't regret it. The day after was crazy. I was swarmed with calls from my parents, Leah, and various relatives trying to get the whole story, but I didn't answer anything for my mental peace. My mother was furious with me. She sent me over 40 voicemails just yelling at me, calling me extremely offensive names, swearing that she was going to kill me, and wishing that I was dead. Nothing that I hadn't heard before. She said that I had ruined her name and credibility, that my crazy behavior had brought shame to the entire family, and that she wished that I was never born. She also called me a jealous, cunning, selfish, insecure person who hated the fact that my sister was prettier, skinnier, and smarter than me. I had to laugh out loud here. She sent me another long voicemail saying that I was dead to her and that she never wanted to see my face again. So yeah, not great. Leah left me a bunch of voicemails too, calling me even worse things. Pretty much the same things my mother sent. I don't know if I'm ever going to speak to them, and honestly, I don't want to. They don't deserve any more of my time, love, or patience. The way they reacted to this whole situation just proves that I'm better off without them. There is some good news that came out of this situation. Many of my relatives have reached out and shown me their support. A lot of them see things from my perspective and say that my outburst was valid. It wasn't something that just happened, it was years of pressure. Many of them heard my mother's voicemails and were appalled at the way that she spoke to me. They are finally seeing her in a new light, and a lot of them are planning on cutting ties with her. I haven't spoken to my parents or Leah since the incident. They truly don't want anything to do with me, and neither do I. They haven't spoken to any of my family members either because they are too ashamed to do so. I heard that they had taken my name out of their will. I don't think my name was even there to begin with, but I don't care. My husband and kids are my main priority now. I have a few relatives backing me up as well, and I think that's all I need. Thought I'd pop in here with a quick update. So it's been 4 months since I posted, and things are going okay. I haven't had an actual conversation with my parents, but through my relatives, I heard that they still think that I'm the enemy here, and that they are never going to forgive me. It hurt, because they still can't see that they were responsible for the way I lashed out, but I have come to terms with it. In life, you win some and you lose some, and I think I'm never going to win them back. That's okay, because I already have so much to be grateful for. If ever in the future they decide to apologize and acknowledge their actions, it's still going to take me a while to forgive them. I've been traumatized enough, and I think I'm just going to close this chapter, and I'm ready to open a new happy chapter with my husband and kids. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, we'll be seeing you in the next one.